All right, welcome to this episode of the Lehigh Valley with Love podcast. I'm your host, George Wacker, and today we're talking with Joel Hibshman, who tagged us in an Instagram post. We found each other on there, and what he's doing is really fascinating. We learned a little bit of his story, but I want to find more about it. That's why he's here today. He's run on all 6,000 streets in Lehigh County, and he's almost done with all 5,800 streets in Northampton County, all while picking up litter and starting this journey, this exercise adventure journey a little bit later in life than some people. So we want to talk about that. But first, a big thank you to our sponsors, Wind Creek Event Center, WXBN, Molly's Irish Grill and Sports Pub, and of course, Michael Bernardin with Remax Realty. You can find out more information about all of them at lvwithlove.com. And Joel, now, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I love finding stuff, organically, where we're kind of interacting on Instagram, and
Right.
You've been posting, updates with about everything that you've been doing. But before we get into that, let's start from the beginning. You said that you started running a little bit later in life. You picked this all up. So let's kind of start there with how did you get into exercise and why did it come a little bit later?
Well, it goes back to probably like 2008 or so. I was in my early to mid 40s, I guess. Yeah, early 40s. And I was like, I was doing lifting and stuff throughout my life. And, it was okay. And I was getting some results, but then, it wasn't sustainable. And then I started this P90X thing in 2008 because I was heavier, like 240. And I was like, I need to do something I need something more sustainable. So I started that, and I did that for like 2 years. And then I started to drop some weight, and then I thought, well, I'm going to start running, right? I'm going to run. But then I thought, well, okay, I'm in pretty good shape now, relatively speaking. And I'm going to run. I went out and first ran. I could run a mile. And then I had to stop, right? It's like, wow. So then I was going to run a 5K. I ran the 5K at the 5K in Allentown, the St. Patrick's Day 5K. And
one of the better ones?
What's that?
It's a lot of fun. It's one of the more fun ones because at the end they're like yelling at you and throwing stuff.
It's all lined with the parade people.
Yeah, it's great.
So you run the parade route. And so, I finished that in probably like 30 minutes or something like that, or some high 20s. Great. And I'm like, okay, I got through that and I didn't die. And I started running a little bit more. And then I was like, and my buddy's like at work, he's like, hey, you should do a triathlon. I'm like, okay.
That's a little bit of a step. That's like, let's go from a 5K in Allentown to a triathlon.
Yeah. Well, then we started riding and then I said, I don't know how to swim. So I figured out how to swim. I mean, I knew how to swim, but not swim that way.
Competitively.
So I didn't know how to breathe do that. So I figured that all out. And then I signed up for the one in Lake Nockamixon called Steelman.
Okay.
Awesome. So I did that. And then things just started to kind of escalate from there. And then I got convinced to do a half Ironman. I did several triathlons and longer runs, and then I got into these marathons. I did New York City Marathon. The first marathon I ever did, I signed up. My buddy at work says, hey, it's all people urging me to do this stuff. It's like, hey, I'm going to sign up for the New York City Marathon. You get there in back then, if you entered 3 times, you were guaranteed to get in the third time. And I said, okay, I'll put my name in. And I put my name in. I got in first the year. He didn't get in. And so I'm like, crap, now I got to run this thing.
Well, we got to have to do it.
What's that? I didn't have to. I'm like,
well, I mean, he recommends. It's like you have really positive peer pressure from your friends. It sounds like
So I did it. That was the first marathon I did, and then I started doing more marathons, and then my buddy was like, oh hey, he's doing a marathon every state. I'm like, I'm gonna try to do that. I travel, so I got about halfway through. I'm about 20 states. I think I've done something like that. So I did that, and I did a full Ironman. I did 2 of them, and those were fun and all that. But then and then one day I'm like, I'm going to start. I don't know. I just want to run, right? I don't want to train for anything necessarily.
Sure.
So I'm just going to run. I'm going to run 5 miles a day, right? Just going to 5 miles a day, whatever. Just 5 miles a day, and then it started like, well, if I want to get to the circumference of the Earth, right? The 24,901 miles. Right? Okay. So I'm like, if I run 5 miles a day till 2025, I will get there, right?
Okay, sure.
So then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to run the year. So it was 2018. But I'll run 2018 miles. But if I'm going to run through 2025, to run the year, I have to run 5.55 miles in 2025. Okay. So I said, screw it. I'm going to run 5.55 miles for the rest till then. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's what I got, this 5.55 thing that I started doing. And then things, went from there. And I'm like, oh, so I was going to finish in 2025. I will finish that this year in
2025 miles. All right.
Yeah. Or I will finish
2023.
901 miles
Got it.
At the end of this year, I believe, if everything goes well.
Sure.
So then as we were one of my buddies again, they're like, I find a lot of trash on the road. And it's like, this is crazy. There's a lot of stuff out there and you don't see it when you're driving. And I'm out there and I first got like kind of sort of drawn to things that were unique, like hubcaps or just interesting things.
Right.
And then I was like, I'm in the process of that, I'm seeing a lot of glitter in cans. And my buddy's like, what you should do is you should collect the cans and then recycle them. And I'm like, okay. Okay. So I'll do that, right? Mm-hmm. So it's fascinating how many cans are out there. It's pretty crazy. It's alarming, disturbing, and
right. It's like morbidly fascinating.
Yeah, because think about it. Like, okay, so how do cans get out on the side of the road? They're coming from a car, probably. Mm-hmm. And well, why are you getting rid of it when you're in your car? Well, are you drinking it in your car? Right? And I guess that's what's happening. I don't know for sure.
I'm sure that there's a lot of roads that you're running on that in Lehigh County or where have you that don't have sidewalks or roads that people maybe don't walk on routinely. So you're coming across the garbage that's been there for a while.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I found over the last year, I found 2 cans. I just found one the other day, a Peels can that had a pull tab on it. And pull tabs you've been using 80s? Pull tabs since the early 70s.
Oh man.
So this can's been kicking around for a long, long time.
And what do you do? Do you bring a bag with you and kind of a backpack or?
Yeah. So that whole thing evolved, and I have a dry bag, which is kind of waterproof, the opposite way. It's inside out waterproof too. So I throw stuff in. It's a backpack thing, and I throw stuff in it, and to keep I put a small like bathroom garbage can in it to keep it rigid so it doesn't collapse on me.
Okay.
But it started out where I had this crossbody like sack, and I'd put stuff in there, and it was wet or it wasn't empty, and I would end up coming home with like crap on my legs, and it was messy. I got pretty dirty doing it that way, and so I kind of evolved it a little bit and kind of came up with a.
Let's full disclosure here. We mentioned before coming on here that you're an engineer. Clearly, you've got this numbers going on in your head.
Right.
Do you weigh the amount of recycling you're getting, or are you keeping track of that in any way? Or
well, I don't weigh it directly, but what I do is I keep it. Most of it's aluminum. I'll sort it when I get home. I put all the aluminum together, and I put all the other stuff. If it's garbage, I throw it away. Or if it can be recycled, I'll recycle it. But I save it in bags, and then I go to the recycling, the Schneider down on Sumner Avenue, and I take it there, and they weigh it. So I keep when I do that, then I check how much it weighs, and I keep tabs on that and how much it weighs.
I love it.
I don't know what I have. I don't know what it is in terms of numbers that I have, but about in terms of value dollar wise of aluminum, I'm probably approaching $600 or $700 worth of aluminum.
Cast this off on the side of the road.
Right, it's free. It's free.
Well,
just for me to pick up.
Which is amazing, and thank you so much for doing that. It's because a lot of people are like, hey, the fact that you're even getting out to run 5 miles alone, and you're like, you know what? While I'm out there, I might as well make the countryside look amazing. And speaking of that, you wrote the little thing talking about the 6,000 streets in Lehigh County that you have run. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about how did you figure that out? Number one, and then how did you kind of map out how you were going to run all of those? It just seems like a lot that has to go into that. How do you do
it? That's true. It is. It was at first. So my first thing was, this was cooking around in my head for a while, before, and I'm like, well, I'm going to run all of Allentown because Allentown's the third largest city in Pennsylvania, and it's a real city. And I'm like, that'd be kind of cool to finish that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. So I'm like, how do I do that? Like, where do I get a map? You can't go. You used to be able to go by maps at like 7-Eleven or something like that. You can't.
Right.
Do that really
I think would it be easier with GPS or does that make it?
I could do that. I could go to Google Maps and stuff, but I need some way to track it. So I did some research. I found that the Allentown City Street Department has maps. They're about 3 feet by 5 feet, and they're like they'll give them to you. So I'm like, I call them up. I say, hey, I'm going to come down there. And I went down, and it's not like it's a real map. They print it out. They have the map for their wards, all the different wards, and they printed it out for me. They printed out this big map, and it,
did they ask you what you were doing with it? You're like, I'm gonna go run with this.
I did tell them what I was doing, and I never really went back and told them I finished. But I laid it out, and then I started like marking it what I have done, highlighting what I've done, and then looking at it, say, okay, how can I do this? And not duplicate too much extra streets. You have to do. It turns out if you run all the streets, if a city has 1,000 miles, that say 500 miles of streets in it, you'll end up running about 750 miles. It's about 1.5.
Because you have to. It's inevitable to kind of backtrack or.
Oh yeah, you can't. Like there's a lot of cul-de-sacs that you go down, so there's no way to get out. Right, you have to come back.
Right. Yeah.
So and you double back, and so I got this map and I started doing it. I got most of the way through it. And then I found this website called City Strides, which it takes all your data. I collect all my data on Garmin. So it takes all the data from Garmin and it makes you a life map, and it colors all the roads you've done in purple. So I look at the map. Now it's easy to do. I look at the map every day, look at my life map and say, okay, what street haven't I done here? And then I use this other Run Go app that just plots out the areas where I haven't. I physically manually plot them out, and then I just follow it, and I turn it on when I start running, and it tells me when to turn, and go take the whole route, and then I finish that way. So it's pretty easy now to do.
Pretty easy. How long did it take you?
Pretty easy to plan for sure.
Relatively, right? Yeah. How long did it take you to complete Lehigh County?
I started Allentown in April of 2021. That was the first city that I did. And then I live in Whitehall. So then I did Whitehall next. And it's fascinating. I've been in Whitehall for over 20 years. Yeah. And there were places I never was.
Well, Well, keep going.
Anyway, so I did that. I did Whitehall. And then, so I finished in December of 2022. So September. So it would have been April of 2021 to December of 2022. But probably really 2 years because I had some stuff done before that, but I didn't have to redo. But when I really started going hardcore in it, then I was April to. Did
you finish Lehigh County and go, well, I got to do Northampton next? Is that
well?
I mean, it seems like an obvious progression.
Right. Well, I was like, well, what's the next thing? Yeah. No, Northampton was right after that. And then I looked at some research and technically, when you say I'm from the Lehigh Valley, I didn't know what Lehigh Valley really meant. Right. What is Lehigh Valley?
I think it's still a little ambiguous.
It's Northampton and Lehigh County. Right. I think there's some definitions of it that say it goes into
a little carbon.
Jersey. Maybe, but my definition is Lehigh. Right. The most common definition is Lehigh, Northampton County.
You're safe with that.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, as I was getting close, you get a little remorseful when you're getting close to the end. You're like, what am I going to do now? Right. So.
Well, you are. I bet there's a lot of people who are like, thank God, I'm almost done with this.
You're like, well, yeah, I need something else to do.
No, but
So then Northampton's next, and it's like, well, the Northampton is then Lehigh Valley. Right. And to my knowledge, no one has done that. Like someone has run Bethlehem. I've done all of Bethlehem. I don't know that anybody has finished Allentown yet. When I was in the middle of Allentown, I found out that Matthew Turk, the mayor of Allentown now, he reached out to me. He goes, hey, you're doing this and we should run together sometime, because he was trying to finish it while he was campaigning. He'd already won that. He was the nominee at the time, or he was running
busy enough,
at the time. Anyway, he was running the town to kind of campaign. And and then I went by. He was way ahead of me, and then I went by him, and I finished it. And he's still working on. He's got things to do, right?
Well, he's been a little busy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I bumped into him once or twice, and we talked a little bit about it. So it was pretty fun. But
that's really fun.
So,
so when you've been, and this is something that I find fascinating because my dentist is in Catasauqua. So whenever I get a chance to go up there, I have to go in for a cleaning or something. I kind of go up 30 minutes early and walk through the neighborhood because I enjoy that borough. Are there some things that you have seen? You've lived here your whole life, right?
Mm-hmm. I moved here when I was 20. I've been here.
Okay, so
years.
Your adult life.
Right.
Are there some areas that you were like, whoa, this is really neat, and I didn't know that it existed?
Right. Well, one of the things that I found more recently was Columkill. I think it's Columkill Park in Bangor. It's this guy who's put up these. I don't know if you know about it.
The monoliths.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't been there,
It's pretty interesting. Yeah. I ran there, and so that was interesting. And just a couple weeks ago, I'm running. I knew of this person living in the area, but then I'm running down the street and I look, and there's this gate, and there's a big statue there, and it was Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes' house is in Palmer Township.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, and it's in the middle of this neighborhood, and I knew he lived in the area, but I didn't know where, and all of a sudden it's there right in front of me. It's kind of crazy.
And if he was outside, he probably would have said hi because he's
the gate. There's a gate there, but it wasn't even closed. I could have walked in. I wouldn't have done it, but I could have walked in.
Well, I wouldn't want to face Larry on his own turf either.
Right, but things like that. You just and the interesting thing about Lehigh Valley is it's you got the Appalachian Trail on one side of it, and you have the third largest city in the middle of it, and at the other end, the southern end of it, down towards Bucks County. There's mountains there. They don't get their credit that they're due because there's some really big hills down in the south that you think about the mountains of the Appalachian Trail. Those are the mountains, but I mean, obviously you have to have mountains on either side to make a valley. So
sure,
but it's pretty hilly in the south too.
Yeah. One of the things where I found you was you're documenting a lot of this on at least your Instagram, which is at Joel Hibshman. We'll have that in the show notes. You can follow him. So talk a little bit about what you're doing on social media. I know you run with your dog, Luna, as well.
Yeah.
So, kind of what can people find when they find you on there?
So what I do is I'll take pictures of interesting things that I find, places I am. And so since I'm doing this all over the Lehigh Valley, I don't go to the same. Sometimes I'll focus on an area, but a lot of times I'll go there for a while, and I'll go somewhere else, and I'll go somewhere else, right? So I'm someplace different every day. And so I take my dog. We got our dog in 2020, in October of 2020, and I didn't know if she was going to run with me as much as she did. But she's run about 5,500 miles with me so far, and she's probably she's the dog that's run the most of Lehigh Valley. I could almost guarantee that. But so I go out and I'll whatever I find interesting. And my daughter started talking me into doing reels instead of just kind of posts. So I started putting music on them.
Good idea, because that's where I found you. So
right. And so
idea.
She was right. The reach of the posts aren't as good as the reach of the reels. Right. And so I made it a little bit more interactive, and that you don't have to do much work to kind of see what's going on. And it takes a little bit of time to produce. But once you do it a couple times, it gets pretty quick.
Sure.
So it's fun. It's great. It's for me to diary everything. I think forced to write everything down, and then I have the data. And if I ever want to collect it and put it into some volume of some sort, a book or whatever, I have all that information. And then I post, and I have all these pictures. I take a picture of every piece of trash that I've collected. And that's over 35,000 pieces that I've collected. I take a picture of almost every street sign, at least the one street sign from the street I'm on. So I have a picture of almost every street sign and every piece of litter. So if I ever want to go back and kind of jog my memory, I can easily do it. It's all very, very much there. right? To go back to and look at all that stuff.
It's so fascinating. I think we forgot one of the most important things here. You are, as you collect litter, you're donating those proceeds to the Sanctuary Pet Rescue. Where is that located at?
It's in Hapsville, out near Fogelsville. Right? Okay. Actually, the funny story about that is I say I'm doing that. I am doing it. I'm collected all that money. I have all that money. I have yet to give them the money. So
well, it's coming.
It's coming. They're probably thinking, this guy, he's lying.
Right. We'll hold you to it.
Right. I have about $600 or so, $600 sitting at home in cash.
Because you're making, as you're going out on a run, then you're still making money, making donations for them. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, anything that, and what I'm trying to get more reach to is that to make people aware that there is a lot of crap out there. And I've gotten involved in this community. There's a growing community in the Lehigh Valley of people who go out and volunteer and pick up litter. So we've been kind of feeding off each other a bit.
I know there's a LV cleanup.
Yes.
On Instagram. I know that she's
very active. Stuff. She does some crazy, she's very, very active. And so we communicate from time to time via Instagram and stuff. So, but I see what she's doing, and we all, my approach is very different. It's every day, and it's not the volume that I get every day isn't nearly what she gets on a weekend. She collects bags and bags and bags of stuff. So it's a little bit different, but
it's a different approach for the same thing, right? We're
right.
Spreading awareness on, hey, we have these beautiful roads, this beautiful land throughout Lehigh and Northampton counties, and there's trash there that you're just not seeing, or stop littering. But also for the people who are going out and doing something about it, that's an inspiration to a lot of other people.
I just thought about this the other day, actually. Of the 30, I've collected 35,000 pieces of litter, and I've run, almost 25,000 miles. Not during that time, but probably a good 15,000 miles during that time I've been, that I've been doing this, and or maybe more like 10,000, maybe less than that, whatever. And all the time I've been running, let's say that, I have never actually seen someone throw anything out of their car, right? I never seen it being deposited there.
Right. Which you would think the odds would
be high because of all the stuff you find, that you would see someone doing it, but I've never seen anybody actually doing it. So maybe it's aliens. I don't know.
I mean, like you said, it's there from the 70s. It's just crazy that there are some areas where people they're not running, they're not looking down with their eyeballs. They're driving by, and that's totally understandable. Right. So you had mentioned that we're raising money, you're raising awareness. Where do you go next after this? Like, what are your kind of plans? And then to that point, like, what advice would you give to somebody who maybe doesn't want to go to your extreme, but just wants to get out there and get active?
Yeah, well, I mean, like next for me, okay, so I'm at this, I'll probably be done with the circumference of the earth at the end of this year. And I'll be pretty close to being done with all the streets in the Lehigh Valley by the end of this year. I'm traveling some, so obviously if I'm traveling, I'm not running in the Lehigh Valley, so I can't make any progress there. But
you can just start other cities.
Oh yeah, I run new places in different places, which is fun. Right. And so I was thinking, well, okay, what do I do now after I'm done with this? Because I'm on the edge of finishing a couple of these things. And so what do I do next? Well, I mean, I can go into other municipalities, or the other thing is to okay, can I get 50,000 miles, which is twice the circumference of the earth, after the age of 50, right? I started this a little bit before I was 50, but most of my mileage is after 50. I probably have 20,000 miles in me from the time I was 50. So can I get to 50,000 miles after the age of 50, which I think if I give myself to 75, and depending on how active I can be till then, maybe I have a shot at getting there. It's a goal, right? Maybe I'll get there. Maybe I won't.
You're gonna be 75 on your spreadsheet. I got 20 miles left.
So I don't know. I mean, tomorrow it could all end, right? I could have an injury and I couldn't run.
Sure.
Right. And I would figure something out, but I know it's not guaranteed. Every day is not guaranteed, right? So in my mind, I'm kind of preparing for a situation that might occur like that. But right now, you just ride it and see what happens, and just do what you can, and then think of something else. Figure out something else if that doesn't work out, right? Mm-hmm. Or something happens, you got to adapt to that. So, and then so for people, like you asked about people, how to, and there's a website or an app called Literati, and you take pictures of the litter and you upload them, and then it keeps a track of the litter you've collected, and then the global litter count. And there's a big community there, and so that kind of it gamifies it, right? So you go out and pick up litter, you take a picture of it, upload it, and it's like, okay, where am I on this thing, and how much have I helped this?
That's a great idea.
So there's that, and just go for a walk, pick up one thing and take it home. That's one less thing that was there. And if you do that every day, there's people that there's a Instagram account called 5 Pieces a Day, right? So I'm going to pick up 5 pieces a day. That's not that hard, right? If you're out
but after a month, you have
pieces.
180 pieces or 150 pieces.
Right. So, it's not hard. It's just like you don't think about it, and you and it's one of those things that's universally people, there's a lot of things in this world that, people are polarized about, and there's really one thing that people generally will not verbally say they're polarized about is picking up litter. Right.
Sure.
If you say I'm picking up litter,
who likes the litter bug?
Like I'm picking up litter, no one's going to criticize you for doing that, right? That's one thing you can do in this world that's not political, it's not divisive. It's everybody universally thinks that. Obviously, there are people that are working against you out there, but no one that's working against you that's throwing litter out is probably ever going to admit it.
Sure.
Right? They're like, oh no, you're picking up litter. That's bad. I litter all the time. What you're doing is stupid. Right?
Yeah, I'm of the litter bugs fan club.
Right.
No, I get it.
No one's going to admit it, but
that's fantastic. And if it inspires someone to go out and pick up that 5 pieces, that's the 5 pieces that weren't picked up.
Right.
Prior to that. So.
Yeah. So.
Well, Joel, this is amazing. I encourage people to follow you on social media at Joel Hibshman. Again, that is in the show notes. It's JoelHibshman if you're only listening, so you can search him that way. And looking forward to continuing to follow along your journey. We really appreciate it. And before we let you go, I want to make sure we thank our sponsors one more time: Wind Creek Event Center, WXPN, Molly's Irish Grill and Sports Pub, and Michael Bernardin with Remax Realty. You can find all that information at lvwithlove.com. And you can get more information about Joel and the sanctuary in our show notes for this episode. Joel, thank you so much. This is a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. All right. See you.